Welcome. Welcome to the Spiritual Shit Show, and thank you for being my second ever guest on the podcast. I'm really grateful to be able to practice the space of sharing information. And when I sent a little voice memo over, it was my intention for right now with all of this is to hold transformative conversations, but that they're not performative. And then also, but they're very informative. So thank you, Brian, for being here.
Absolutely.
I'll
Yep.
let you introduce yourself in a minute, but before we do that, um, the podcast is called The Spiritual Shit Show. And
Mhm.
my own personal spiritual shit show, which is when everything in my life kind of crumbled. And it's been this slow army crawl back to remembering who I am and what I'm doing and what lights me up. And in every moment when it was like really rattling for me, I think you have met me in these spaces where I'm like, I don't know what is happening. You have been such a strong and guiding force in my life to offer me clarity and grounding. So I just want to start off this podcast for a really deep acknowledgement for you being such an incredible teacher. And in many ways, for me, I see you as a master in energy work, a master in spirituality, just here in this messy human form, which sometimes is never fun. But so many interactions with you have been so transformative energetically for me, not just spiritually and, physically, because I came to you when I was a mess always. But yeah, there's just something about, I can't even name it, how it feels like you have always just kind of opened the door for me as I get into the next phase. And then I meet you again and you open the door and you usher me into the next room. And then I come and meet you again and you're like, it's nice to see you again. So in many ways, I just really, really respect you because I feel like the way I am able to receive you is somebody who is always patiently ushering with so much human compassion us through these doors of life to get us through. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I can't do anything better on an intro than that. It's been wonderful to work with you and your family and everybody else that comes into my office and uh, spend time sharing with them and their journeys and the pathways that they take to be able to become better versions of themselves on a day-to-day basis.
Mm.
Um, So thank you for this opportunity. It's great to be able to share on a podcast, especially with as much work as you and I have done together over the years. And just being even just the birth of this podcast itself, I believe has come out of some of the work that we've done. So great
Yeah.
to be a piece of this. And thank you for having me as a guest. Um, as Julie said, my name is Brian C Mears. I'm an acupuncturist by training. I've been doing that for about 21 years. Over that amount of time, the energy work that I used to do as a kid has shifted and developed into something that's much more difficult to define. In talking to one of my friends, they gave me this concept that I'm an interdimensional node holder on the cosmic crystalline grid. I use this placement that I have as an activator and illuminator of the path for others. Um, and through the time that I've been spending both in my office as an energy worker and as an acupuncturist, I also have developed a visionary style of art that dives deeply into sacred geometry. I use light language in all of my transmissions at this point in time. There's always cosmic connections within my artwork, and then channeled messages that come in from different surrounding star systems. One of the pieces that we've got behind me happens to be one of my pieces of art, and then off there to Julie's left is also this beautiful piece that so honored that you love that one to have it be part of the show. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Me too. And I scripted it all. And now I'm just going to I'm going to set that away, actually. Uh,
All
hmm.
right.
Yeah, because I'm curious if you don't mind talking about in your intro of these things that you can acknowledge that you've always done as far as energy work from
Mhm.
childhood. So what did that look like for you?
Um, as a kid, I used to have just knowledge that I wasn't supposed to have. I had life-threatening asthma and debilitating eczema since birth. I actually was born with lesions across my back. And so as a young kid, it was breathless moments and just moments of absolute raw vulnerabilities because I had weeping lesions on my body all throughout childhood. And in that space, I learned to be able to start reading rooms and reading what was going on around me. And some of it was self-preservation because somebody's angry. I need to put up an extra shielding there to keep myself safe because I literally had holes in my body. And that created a space where I started being able to channel without realizing that's what it was at the time. So as a kid, I used to get in trouble for saying things to adults about, something that they should, a choice that they should make, or have you thought about looking at it in this perspective? And they're like, well, you're 10, you shouldn't know that, so be quiet, kid.
Mm.
And then early 20s, when alcohol came online, I noticed that not only was I getting those transmissions clearer, and I think it was just because the conscious mind was out of the way in early experimentation with um, pharmaceutically related sedation. But I would also notice that people's faces would shift and change on me. And at first, I was wondering what the heck was in the drink that I just had. And then over time, I've learned that I was actually seeing which chakra people's energy was coming from. And when people are young and they're drinking, they don't know how to align their chakras and they don't know how to be where they're supposed to be from. And so they would constantly shift. And I think most of us have seen this. I think the easiest example is our significant other, right? When our partner comes home and they're in a great mood, their face looks completely different versus if they come home and they've had a really hard day. It's not just the frown on their face, but there is subtle shifts and changes there. And then if they're in the mood to go have some intimacy, then they're coming from a different chakra there, and they absolutely look different, subtly in the face, but energetically it's very loud. So I used to call that face dancing, just as a way to describe how the chakras were influencing the way that the face will shift and change depending upon where our energies are centered in within the moment. And then from there, we got into the acupuncture world, did a little bit of Reiki, figured out some of my own energy stuff. And then light language came online later on, and that totally transformed everything.
Will you, what is your best explanation of what channeling is? Because I think more and more, oh, I think we are all channels, but I feel like in maybe like an arm's distance away for some people who are like, that is too woo-woo and or witchcraft kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. But I haven't figured out a great way to even explain the work that I do. So what is your best explanation for what channeling is?
My experience of channeling is when I get myself out of first person,
Hmm.
right? And I go back into the space of the observer and I listen to whatever is there and I just transmit whatever is coming through. So, like in a video game, there's the first person one, you can see the hands and we're moving around and we're engaging with the environment. Or if you zoom back out one in your third person and you see your little character run around on the stage. And in the third person, you have a totally different view of the world that's around you. And you can talk about things that you don't really see in first person. So, my experience in getting into the channeling state is getting out of the immediate 3D perception of what's going on, going back to the space of the observer, just listening to my own thoughts and to things that are just the collective thoughts that are going around, and then transmitting whatever that happens to be.
Mm.
And it's a very conscious piece, at least initially, to make the shift from the first person to the third person. And then, depending upon how many times I decide to step back and observe the observer, or observe the observer observing the observer, then the channeling will shift and change. Kind of the sphere of awareness will shift depending upon how far back I choose to go.
Mm-mm. And is it always self? Or,
It's
sometimes people channel also, you know,
Yep.
yeah.
So no, it's not always self, but it's stepping back into the observer, and now okay, I'm observing from a star system. So then I'm channeling from that star system, but I'm observing from that perspective. Or I'm stepping back into the realm of being with a dragon, and so that I'm channeling from that perspective, and that's what's coming through. So it's
Okay.
like, where do I choose to observe from will determine what the channel is coming from.
And how do you see people? Do you see or know or feel that everybody has this ability, but dot, dot, dot.
I think that all of us came into this world as an awareness, and then we were taught what our name is, and we were taught that we were in a certain type of a body, and we were taught what society expects us to do. And all of those teachings trained out of us the ability to do what we were innately here, which is just being an awareness who's here to experience a 3D reality. And so we get it trained out of us. So everybody has a potential to do it, but depending upon how that training happened, if it was violent or if it was parents that said, no, this is wrong, or indoctrination from a certain perspective, like a religious organization, then that's something that's not accessible to somebody as an adult, even though innately they have that ability, just because they're afraid to go open that door. They're not sure what's on that other side.
Mm-hmm. And you're going back to in your 20s when you were like, more and more of this is coming online for me. You're learning how to trust it a little bit more. How did you practice stepping into it as truth and not like losing my mind or nobody's going to understand this or, those other things kind of come along with when that happens, it's like, it's like, for lack of a better word, like truth and spirit versus like the egoic mind of like, this, what are you doing? People are going to, you're nuts.
Um, I've always felt like I was nuts. I've always felt like I had a perspective that was totally not embraced by the rest of the world. And that initially started with having a body that was compromised and having a completely different experience of moving through the world because everybody else could go for a hike out in the woods. And I had to make sure I had my rescue inhaler and that I had my lotion and I had all the other things, tools of Western medicine that I grew up with to be able to keep myself stable. So when these other things started coming in, it's like, well, I'm already half crazy anyway. And nobody can understand what I'm saying as far as my experiences. So it just added into that space. And so some of the blockages that I see other folks having, I didn't pick up so many of those because it was always like, okay, I'm just the weird guy. I'm fine with that. What does that mean? And how do I show that? And yes, there's stories about what, family says I should and shouldn't do and what my kids are comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with as far as the energetic presentations that I can show up with. But it's always been and how do I get more true to myself?
When you were sharing too about your backstory, my guest, Chris, on the first podcast, she also experienced a lot of limitations within her body first. And that was kind of this very reckoning, almost like doorway into her own spiritual awakening. Do you see that there's a connection between those who are physically here? Because I see both of you as like these incredible, like masters in light. That it almost feels like it's too, you can't even like put all of you in this body. And so it makes sense that to come down into form, that there might be a connection between the unease of the physical body and those ailments that I don't know, need to be transformed or looked at or seen. I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say here? Maybe.
I do, and I would agree. There's a space of to be able to hold an awareness that's greater, to be able to have that slightly out of focus perspective from everybody else. There's an extra heat that builds up inside the system within my own case, right? And that heat and that friction of having multiple realities, that this is the way that people are saying the world is, but I'm seeing that one over there. It creates an extra friction inside the physical structure as we're trying to contain as much light as possible. And in my own case, it would cause cracks in the surface. Wow. And every single time I'm about to go through some sort of an up leveling, I always have an eczema flare. And I keep asking, like, all right, dear body, please, we can do an up leveling without breaking the vessel anymore. Let's be more gentle on the system. And that conversation is starting to work, although it takes a lot of time.
How would you describe like energy symptoms?
In my own case, energy symptoms typically end up as kriyas, Kriyas, which is defined to me as involuntary movements. So it looks like spasms. Usually I get fluttering within the abdomen. Sometimes I'll end up with extra sounds that end up coming out. I'll have conversations that I'm aware of, but something will come out that has nothing to do with what's going on around me and everything else. It's not just being stuck in my head. There's a like a negotiation that's happening. There's another awareness, another bubble of reality that's opening up for me. Those, and then the physical piece of it, the skin gets really itchy, and it's like, okay, it's crawling underneath, and there's the micro kriyas of the blood moving underneath the skin I become aware of. I usually become very aware of physical organ functionality. So if I happen to have a glass of wine with my partner, then I will actually feel my liver be in more constraint. And I'll feel it be processing. As soon as it's done processing out the alcohol, then the liver just relaxes, and there's no concerns in that space. The really large ones that I've had, as far as the big upgrades, have been ones that threw me into light language, and I couldn't speak English for 3 days. Complete body convulsions where I was totally in control. It's like I could stop this if I want to, but it actually feels really good to have the shaking. And having a sense of wholeness and wonder with a different vibrational state that I hadn't experienced before.
Okay. So when I first started Spiritual Shit Show, it was Spiritual Shit Show normalizing the woo. So these woo concepts are just actually like, it is who we are. It's just a part of what we forgot. And I want to segue next. Some of this is like, because I wish I would have had that information when I was going through it. But when, in my life, things went away, dismantled. I had to really understand what the process of like losing an identity, like for so long I was Miss Julie and this was my life and this is who I was and this is what I did. And then all of that kind of washed away. And I feel like now I'm in crossing the bridge to this unknown, but I'm meeting the unknown without the fear and this like total survival grip on what once was, of who I identified myself to be. But with that, in that, it's about to be 9 years, which is very significant because I feel like 9 is that year of completion too. So I feel like things are really shifting. But in that 9 year space at the very beginning of the rumbling and the trembling and like the grief and the all that stuff, literally when I would meditate, that's like these like things like my body would just start moving or I would start shaking or my head would just want to move, and then that's when for me light language came in. But at first it came in as tones, like I just wanted to sing certain tones, and then I kept it very secret because I'm like, this I don't know anybody who processes anything like this, and this is a little wild, but at the same time it felt so like illuminating. Something that I couldn't describe and explain that was happening to me just felt so here I am, finally. But at the same time it was very disorienting, very like it was all the things. And then light language came through. And then I kind of kept that on the down low. And so it's been a slow, like, I feel like a little, like a mouse coming out of the house every once in a while. And I go back in and I come out for a little longer. So I guess my question to you is, for me, the process of awakening and understanding, the power of the body and energetics and shaking and trembling, and then also tonals, and singing. And then most of the time that leads to light language. What was that experience for you? I'm sure it was way quicker for you than it was for me. But then also, how would you describe it in a way that is supportive to other people who may be going through this, but suppressing it because they're like, what the heck is going on? Like this is not normal and this is not normal. So they suppress it. So how can we create more of a container for the energy of it's normalizing that woo, that it's actually energy moving through? Or what else do you have to say?
Great. So your experience is the normal one, right? And I had a very similar version of it. I kept light language to myself for quite some time before I started putting it in my art. I didn't share any of the auditory version that I can channel for a long time. until I started talking about my art and be like, well, what's light language? And all of a sudden out comes, a whole paragraph. I was like, oh wait, that wasn't English. Sorry about that. And so working in just the shifts and the changes there. I the way that I tend to think of it is that in at nighttime we don't. Or, I'm sorry, at nighttime is the only time that we turn on the street lights. They don't come on during the day. But once you have one light that's been illuminated, then other ones start to light up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the initial waves, the initial people that came on that had the challenges and kind of laid the path, the pathfinders, the path seekers, the way showers, right? We had to figure out the way to be able to make this normal first. We had to go up against what the stories of society was telling us, what's right, what's wrong. We had to go through all of the pieces of what does it mean to be illuminated? What does it mean to work with light language? What does it mean to have an awareness that's greater than what my physical eyeballs are actually holding on to? Right, being able to see the subtle little distortions within energy fields is something that's very disorienting to people. But the initial people had to be able to do that to be able to help make it normal for people that are coming on afterwards. And so the second and third wave of people that are waking up are absolutely being activated, right? And the energies that are out there in space right now, we're going to have a whole other wave that's about to be activated, or that are actively in the process of waking up. And so they're going to have weird tonal sounds, or they're going to have strange movements in their body that they're not sure how to do, or where those actually come from, right? They'll have the shaking, they'll have the changes in their dialect, in their eyesight, maybe even in their smell, and some of the ways that they're just shifting energetically around the world. And each one of us has to hold the light for the next wave. Right. And as we're holding the light for the next wave, then we've got the original ones. Of course, we're still working on what's the next path. Where do we have to move forward from? And how do we keep everybody moving forward so that we've got the space that humanity can actually make things much better for each other as a collective. Right. I think a great way to look at this, if you're looking at normalizing it, is that the human eyeball has structures in it that allow us to see magnetism, but our brain doesn't know what to do with that information. So somewhere in there, developmentally, we have the ability to see magnets or the magnetic lines that come off it, but our brain can't process it. So what's the science behind that? What would be an evolutionary benefit of us being able to see magnetism, but the brain can't function or can't process that information? So as people are coming online, they're picking up larger and larger percentages of the known frequencies within the universe. Right? The average human body can only hold on to about 4%, can only perceive about 4% of the known frequencies. That's the light spectrum, that's the sound spectrum, as far as the two big ones. That means 96% of what we would define as reality from a scientific perspective, the human body can't perceive without some form of technology. But our eyeballs are hardwired to be able to see something that we can't process or comprehend. So all of this process of waking up is plugging back in the things that somehow, somewhere became unplugged as a species, that we're now starting to pick up other information. Right? I can take my vision and turn it from physical world, great, here's my laptop, there's the camera, there's the stairs, all the things that I've got that are in front of my field of vision, and shift it into an energetic seeing. So, okay, well, now I got one of my little guides is sitting over there in the corner, and I can see my dog's energy pouring out from underneath the table, and all those fluxes are there, and it's just part of the perspective shift that I think we're all getting ready to go through.
I think so too. So what is the awakening process in your words that you're seeing many of us go through? Because honestly, I think when I first started doing this, it felt crazy because there wasn't enough talk about it. But now more and more and more and more, you can, I don't know, it's feeling like all of it is becoming more normalized, and people are, even non-believers are kind of like leaning into the possibility that we are more than what we think we are, and we have the power to heal and all of that kind of stuff. So as more and more of us are awakening, what is the actual awakening process? Like what is actually happening? What is it about?
It's a shifting of perspective, right? It's people taking a space, and all of a sudden we were told this is the only way that the world is. This is the box that everything's supposed to fit into. And something happens, doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be a major event, but it's something that creates a question mark that says, well, that doesn't fit inside the box of reality that I know of. And so we're looking just slightly outside that box. And we've been told it's not safe to go outside that box, but we're shifting outside of it and trying to find a way to define this thing that we don't have language to really define.
Mhm.
because it doesn't fit within the mold of what we were told we were supposed to be experiencing as life on this planet. And the more light that is coming on to the planet, right, both energetically and physically, right, the sun is much brighter now than it was when I was a kid.
Mhm.
The amount of space weather that hits the planet on a regular basis is just ridiculous. And I've been watching space weather for 20 years. And we're in the center of a hurricane right now, as far as what's swirling around the planet. And it's all high charged photon particles. It's all light that's coming pouring into the planet.
Mhm.
So what we're getting is we're getting a slightly different perspective. It's like if you pick up a new hobby, if you've never ridden a horse before, you don't know anything, you can identify a horse, but you don't know anything about it, and you say, I'm going to go get horseback riding lessons. Within a couple of weeks, your body is sore, right? And you've got a whole new set of terminology that you didn't even know existed before,
Mhm.
because that wasn't part of your reality. That wasn't part of your perspective about what made up the world. You knew it existed on some level, but you'd never experienced it before. And so once you get into, taking care of a horse and all those things, now you got 40 words to describe what it is to be around a horse. Whereas potentially a couple of weeks earlier, you had nothing other than that's a horse, it's big and it's brown.
Mhm.
So we're just shifting our perspective, and we're enlarging our field of vision, right? Our field of experience in this planet, because what we're told we're supposed to be experiencing inside this box does not hold the light of the human soul. We're
Mhm.
far too bright as energetic beings. We've got way too much energy to try to contain within our small structures.
Mhm.
Um, and as we start pushing against those confines of what we were told we're supposed to experience, that's when we start shifting perspectives and realities and seeing things that weren't there before. Maybe not actual like hallucinations, but just what's outside the box. How do I define this? And that's why people are talking about it and they're curious and they're questioning. Right?
Mhm.
Somebody else has had to experience this before me. What did they say about
Mhm. That's why I'm asking you.
it? Right?
Yes. Yes. Okay, let's segue into art because I just can't stop seeing what's behind you too. I
Right.
would say when I started light language, it was interesting because it would come in for certain people and not others.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one friend, and we actually went to high school together. And then we connected in 2020. She was randomly here on a work trip. And then she started what she was calling the circle. So it was, um, you know, people. There's five of
Yep.
us. And we would practice Reiki and Reiki shares and that kind of stuff. And that having a group that I could practice. And then also, not that it needs validation, but it was nice to enforce with validation. Like if something was coming in for me and then something else, that same thing was coming in for somebody else, it felt like it was just kind of strengthening the
Yep.
curiosity and the truth and the energy of what was coming through. But my friend, when we would do shares together, nothing was in English. And I was talking to her like my sister, but in this tone. And she was like, I don't know what you're
Mhm.
saying, but I can feel it in my body. I don't know what is happening, but it feels so transformative. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I understand the tone. I feel like I'm talking to you like a big sister and my hands are waving and I'm telling you what to do. But that's just how it's coming through and I'm trusting it. And then another time when I was teaching dance, we were I wasn't making vision boards, but it was something to that effect. And we're just kind of doodling. And I started writing light language in my picture. And at the end, I was showing, I didn't tell him that that's what it was. And one
Mhm.
of the girls was like, oh, I felt that. And I was like, what? And she was like, when I looked at your picture, it felt like the ocean breeze blew over me. Like I felt that. And I was like, cool. So your work is that same way. It feels like it is an energetic, I like to call them like plugins, like when you get like a scented toxic plugin that you put in your room, that real art with light language in it becomes like an energetic plug-in that helps amplify the space energetically. But that's what I think.
No, I would completely agree with that. I mean, the way that I create my art is the space of I keep working with it until my eyeballs, the physical eyeballs, cannot contain all of the frequency that I've put within my art. And so it has a wave, it has a presence, it has a push that comes off of the canvas that it actually encourages people to engage with it. And there's an energetic washing that happens as well.
Mm-mm-mm-mm. And does it feel different in your physical body when you are speaking it versus when you are creating art with it, or is it feel the same?
Very different,
Hmm.
right? With the vibrations of using the voice, and moderating that, down from deep inside and going all the way up into nasal, and the different tones that come out. I can feel the vibration in the body from that, from the more somatic experience. When I'm writing it, it's coming as a channel down through my hand, and I sense it, and I'm feeling the waves coming off the paper instead of the waves resonating out of the trunk.
Hmm. When you're writing it and creating with it, like when I first started writing it, it was almost like it's not even like how I would normally write. It was, I think I just would start from like right to left and down almost, that way.
Mhm.
And I was like, what is this? It felt like something that I have done before, just not in this form that was
Yep,
coming through, like an old remembrance.
yep, absolutely. Well, it writes in all directions. So sometimes right to left, left to right, up to down, and
Mhm.
vice versa. And sometimes it writes in a circle, or it writes out, or writes in.
Mm.
So then you'll have a code with another code with another code with another code, and it will build on itself. And then when you zoom out and you're actually done with whatever has been um, channeled, you end up with a totally different experience depending upon the direction in which it was written.
And why is it important? Why is it coming through? What is it?
Um, that's a great question. I contemplate that often. I think that what it is that the human tongue lacks the ability to express the frequencies that existed long before we were here, long before the planet was here, right? Just the awareness that is. And we cannot define that. We don't have the language to be able to put that out. I've heard light language described as the language that humanity used to speak before we went into the Tower of Babel, when all of humanity was fractured and language became difficult, so we couldn't understand each other. And it makes sense that if we're speaking in a frequency, then it doesn't matter if I'm using the word apple, or I'm speaking it in French, or I'm speaking it in Japanese, or I'm speaking it in light language, right? This is the frequency experience of what that item happens to be.
Mm.
You can't lie with light language. I think that's important,
Mhm.
because the human ego loves to lie and loves to tell stories so that we look whatever we want our facade to look like.
Mhm.
Um, and people that do try to, because I've actually tried it, like, and actually have the intention and say something that's light, and it just does not come.
Mhm.
It does not flow the way that it normally does.
Mhm.
Um, so it's a space of humanity being able to step back into a more authentic um, expression of higher integrity,
Mhm.
of just beings being on a planet and seeing and acknowledging all of our light and not judging it, but being with curiosity.
Yeah.
Um, right? And how's the curiosity, and how do we help you to shine brighter, and how do I help you to shine brighter, and how do we help everybody to shine brighter?
Mhm.
Right? Instead of the judgment of you're doing it this way is wrong or that way is bad.
Yeah, and or your own personal shame and
Oh
guilt
yeah,
and doubt that we just
yep,
are attuned
yep.
to. Yeah.
Well, that's what we're taught, right? That's what we're taught as we're going through. This is bad. You shouldn't do this. This is what a good person does. This is what a bad person does. And some of those make sense. Let's not hurt each other or hurt ourselves. But most of it is constructs of society,
Yeah.
right? Trying to be able to be the animals don't worry about savings accounts. I mean, we're the only species that pays to live on our home planet.
Yeah.
And there's a whole reality based around the financial system. And people work all the time for the finances, and it's just a construct of what human society has decided was important.
Mm. Yeah. I have so much I want to ask. So I'm lining. I will say this so for those who are listening, if a deeper vibration is coming on in your body, it is always important to remember that if it feels like love, trust it and allow that to continue to move through. And then with that, whether it's singing or like, I feel like more personal self-expression and expansion is really needed. So then more of our light can continue to be seen and witnessed and sung. Light language itself can be experienced through song or art or speaking or yeah, but for me, when it comes through for certain people, and I am hesitant sometimes, I'm like, I'm gonna think like, who is this person? Um, but I know it to be true because it literally comes from here, and I can't control it. I
Right.
can't interfere with it. And the
Yep.
way it is received, though, it is received like the freshest breeze, or some what I feel like what it does sometimes it is literally speaking to the soul of that person and not to what they want to hear or need to hear in that like their mind, their mental part of
Yep.
what they think they need to hear. It's really speaking the remembrance of who you are. Don't forget it's who
Absolutely.
you are.
Absolutely. Well, you've been doing light language much longer than you knew it was light language, right? All the way back for your dance instruction career. When you and I first met, and I don't know how long ago that was, but the movements that you were able to do and to channel the extra vibrational frequencies of the music itself is an expression of light language,
Yeah.
right? And becoming comfortable with it, and you're putting it in the lens of dance,
Mm-hmm.
and then that allowed that expression to break enough out of the mold that finally you started seeing larger expressions that you couldn't quantify as just this is dance movement, right? I need to add the tones, I need to add some things that aren't smooth with the rhythm I'm hearing. It's from an internal rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
that vibrational space. I mean, my first acupuncture teacher, very first day of school, said if you want to be a successful acupuncturist, you need to do three things. First, you need to be humble if you want to succeed. This isn't a hold my beer and watch this type of medicine. That makes a lot of sense. Second, you've got to become the medicine. Okay, right? You can't be a smoker and tell your patients not to smoke. And but most importantly, or much more important than the first two, is you got to chop off your head because this medicine doesn't care what you have stuffed between your ears. It resonates out of that sacred space you have inside of your chest.
Mm-hmm.
And so light language is coming from that space where it is sacred connection, right? There's a difference between us and a corpse that doesn't have life within it. And what is that light? Where is that frequency coming from? And the more that we tune into that, the less we are up here and the more we're down into that sacred space, the lighter the bright shines. The more we hear it, the more we allow it to move our system and our structure in ways that may seem really weird on the surface because of what we've seen other people do, but it feels it's intoxicating, right? It feels like love. It feels like a total effervescence that washes through the entire system,
Mm-hmm.
and you can observe it flowing through, and you feel like, oh, that thing that was locked up is not locked up anymore, and all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden I've got a different movement that I didn't realize was even possible within this vessel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a wild journey for sure. And again, just for the listeners, that if this is something that you're feeling a nudge towards, and like when I feel the calling, it's down here, in my belly and in my heart. So just continue to lean into it, and it's going to require, especially if you're unraveling. I guess what I'm trying to say is allow yourself to be in the full somatic and energetic experience of what is needing to come more online for you, so you can remember who the awakening and the truth and the love of who you are. And
Absolutely.
again, I want to say thank you because I literally feel like you help while we're in the process of that ground us to the earth too. So we're not experiencing like us, wanting to fly out of here. So I just want to also just honor that. I do see that the work that you do is very grounding, so we can ascend but still stay in a very grounded, real state of witnessing and becoming.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the ascension process this time around is not what we've seen the ascended masters do, where they disappear out of our reality.
Mm,
The current process of ascension is we're taking the planet with us to a new reality.
mm.
So we have to stay grounded to be able to lift up our mother, to be able to lift up the planet in a totally different vibrational state, than what our ancestors were able to even contemplate as being possible.
I feel that in one of my sessions, I heard that we are all the doulas for Earth, Earth herself. We need to
Right?
stay here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Stay here and shine brightly.
Yeah, yeah. Just gonna do a quick little time check. It always goes by so fast. I do have a
Mhm.
question, then I want to talk more, finish out our segment with art. But in the awakening process too, what I have been able to experience, and I think where I hold a little bit of like, I don't want to go too far in the rabbit hole because I've seen the path that other people have led, which isn't bad. But number one, I always want to make sure that I remember that I am a human doing this, that I don't become so spiritual that I think I'm not a spirit, that, that I'm not of this human form, that I really want to I don't want to cheat myself out of the human experience and all of the human experience, even when it's tough. But I know that if I tether to the truth and the light of who I am, I can experience the human experience probably with a little bit more grace, joy, fun, and embodiment and community. So that's my own personal goal. And in working with other people, I feel like there are different dimensions that people work from as well. Is that
Mhm.
true?
Yes,
And there's no,
absolutely.
yeah, and it's not right or wrong. Like for, I have a family member and she does stuff, and I let her do a session on me, and I just heard very clearly, like, don't listen to what she's saying. This is right. This is okay, but it's just not for you. So and they were like, I told you not to do this anyway. So I was like, okay, I know. I don't listen. I'm here. But what I've been getting is, again, there's no right or wrong. It's just a chosen point from which you want to experience energy.
Mhm.
And then ultimately, though, the goal is to keep kind of seeing how you can um, at least align with the highest, purest source of love. And all these other parts are that too, but you know.
Yeah, on everybody's individual personal journey, it's not for us to know and experience what everyone else is experiencing,
Mm,
right? If you and I climb the same mountain, but you're on the north side and I'm on the south side, we
totally.
have two completely different experiences, but we still make it to the same peak,
Mm,
right? And so I can't go talk to you on the other side of the mountain and go, well, how's it going over there? What's that cliff like? And you go, what cliff? What are you talking about?
mm,
Right? And so it's finding the people that are close to the trail with us that we can walk together as a collective of humanity, that we all end up traveling up the mountainside together. And
mm,
so the people that are on the east and the west, they'll have more in relationship to us than those that are on the opposite side of the mountain. And nobody is right and nobody is wrong. We just have the perspective of what we're doing in front of us. And those that are around us are the ones that are the ones that are close that we can help guide the most.
mm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to learn how to speak shorter and clearer. Okay, your art. I just can you step away so we can see what's in the center?
Yeah. So that piece is this is called Pleiadian Portal. This is a painting. It's 4 foot by 5 foot across, and it's all light language throughout the whole thing. So everything from the Vesica Pisces in the center, all of the lines on the spiral that are there, and each one of these orbs is nothing but light language throughout the entire piece. This is actually the third face that I've put inside the Vesica Pisces. It keeps shifting and changing on me as far as the energy that wants to come through. Um, but it's the This one comes channeled from the Pleiades itself, which is why it has the name that it does. In that, earlier in the conversation, we talked about kind of increasing awareness
Mhm.
and where are you observing from. So, star seeds are a thing. People are talking about what planet or what star system are they from. It's like, well, what does the planet Earth look like from Pleiades? What does it look like from Arcturus?
Mhm.
And so then I would expand that space, and this was the frequency that came out of Pleiades for me. Right?
Wow.
Pleiades are very feminine as far as the energetics that they have, very loving, very motherly, very like you're going to fall and you're going to hurt your knee, and it's okay. We're going to help clean the wound and keep you moving forward. And I think it's really where the Vesica Pisces comes in so strong. And then there's these energetic trees that are the top and tail of the entire spiral there. All told, that's about 150 hours or so of time with a paint.
Wow. Oh, I think you're frozen.
Happened numerous times, or I've redone the center a couple of times. So I think it's settled on its final presentation. At least it hasn't talked to me recently.
Ooh, okay, talk to me about that. Like when you're, do you have a prep ritual that before you go? Are you like, do you connect into the channel to allow yourself to channel the work, or what is this artistic process for you? And I want to know how it started.
um, two completely different answers. So artwork itself started for me as far as I have no formal art training.
Mhm.
All this came from 12 years ago. My dad was given a terminal diagnosis of cancer.
Mhm.
And I had this realization that, okay, I don't have a good relationship with death. I've got to be able to find a way to make a relationship with it. And I started drawing what I call the empty set monk. And it's basically just monk's robes as if he's sitting in lotus position, but there's no body. It just, the robes are in the position of the body. And I drew it again and again. And the aspect was looking for what's inside, right? Dad told me who I'm supposed to be as a young man at that point in time. And what does that mean, right? That's the facade. And I kept looking deeper and deeper into that space. And through that investigation, I found sacred geometry, I found light language, I found cosmic connections. And the way that art's working for me at this point in time is that I'll have a vision of an energetic expression that I need to create. And that usually comes somewhere within the last 20 hours of the current project that I'm working on. And so my projects are usually somewhere 100 to 200 hours as far as how long I spend working on each one of them. And right towards that end, where I can just see the finish line, I'll have some other awareness. I'll be fascinated with something, right? It could be a sacred geometry. It could be suddenly I'm fascinated with hawks as a piece that I'm is coming next. I can feel it. There's a piece like the orchid that's behind you. I got fascinated with orchids all of a sudden, and it didn't make any sense because I wasn't thinking, let's go do an orchid drawing. But all of a sudden, here's orchids that I need to be able to engage with. And then as one piece is finishing, the other piece just comes online, and I see the entire thing all at once. And so the channeling is taking that snapshot vision and turning it into, like, teasing it apart to be able to turn it into whatever is there. Now, when I'm channeling the light language, I'm hooking into that initial picture that I see, and fine tuning it with the light language. It really is like a tuning process of like, oh, I need this vibrational frequency over here, and I need something different there, and then this piece here definitely has to have different light language in it than it does way out on the edges.
What I am hearing is your work is, I don't know what transdimensional means, but energetic transdimensional portals for us to
Mm-hmm.
remember and to be wrapped around with the remembrance of all things.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm gonna buy some more.
One of my favorite things is when people walk. This sits in my living room. When people walk into my house, they see this thing and they just kind of, holy cow, because it hits them because they walk into a totally different dimension that they've never experienced before.
Well, and honestly, just, looking at you sitting in front of it, so my eyes are there
Mm-hmm.
this entire thing, like just looking at it for the past 45 minutes, I'm like, it's shifting, it's changing. It look like, yeah, it's very powerful.
Thank you. One of my favorite things to do is sit and watch this at sunset because
Mm.
as the light processes across it and the rays of the sun shift and they change color, and so then this thing will reflect the yellows different than it does the reds, than it does the purples that we'll get in our night sky or that transitional period. And it's quite intoxicating, actually.
Do you feel like your work, your own like soul mission energy work, has also up leveled? Like where at first it was, acupuncture and Reiki, like you said, and doing energy work. And now it feels like you can do this and have the same sort of transformative hold, or you're now opening the door for other people, but it's through beautiful art and the remembrance of light.
That's a very yes is the short answer.
Mhm.
I feel that not only with the light, but also when I'm doing energy work in my office. Right when I actually am sitting, starts off as cranial sacral and hands on somebody's head, I see the energetic blueprint of what they're working with,
Mm.
and then I'll tie in small little light codes across their space to be able to open up blockages or reinforce areas that have become weak. And my entire experience nowadays is almost like Neo in the Matrix, when all of a sudden he had matrix vision and everything turned green. It was going up and down. And I still get the correct colors, but I can see the sparkles of energy. And I see that within the pieces of art that I create. And that's how I know that they're done, because they actually sparkle within my own vision and the frequencies that I'm trying to articulate in a way that just absolutely defies human language.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to cry about it. Actually, it feels very, thank you. Just thank you.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Let me know about that hawk one, because hawks are my, every time I'm really praying on something, or they're
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah, they always fly. So I always know I'm on the right path, or I'm being blessed when the hawk comes by. So,
Yeah, we had one that we did last year that was a golden eagle that actually had the Andromeda galaxy across its back. And that one came in from the Andromeda galaxy itself. And that sucker was, woo, that was a lot of energy that was packed into that. Much more actually than this thing happens to be.
mm, 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 mm. You're talking a lot of more like places in the galaxy for us to receive energy. Do you have any, I don't want to say caution, but like maybe an encouragement to keep looking forward, like to not get stuck for those who are beginning to investigate these types of energies and places and terminology like starseed or light language or, Arcturian, plate, like all of that?
Right. Most people actually had something that they were fascinated by when they were a kid,
Mm.
right? They really loved finding the Big Dipper, or they really loved Greek mythology. And I think the things that, or we had an imaginary unicorn, or something that was a childhood friend, or even a real animal that we were just fascinated with as a kid. And I think as we're moving forward and starting to expand our awareness, going back to those original things that fascinated us when we were young keeps us safe. It keeps us into the space where we can step into, okay, I was fascinated in Greek mythology and was really interested in that specific story. And what else is in that area? And how does that vibrate with me now that I'm an adult and I can look at it through a lens of curiosity? And that starts to open up a space that holds us in a realm rather than just like, all right, we're going to Google where are star seeds from. Great, there's the Pleiades, there's the other things. It's really the embodied piece and what is actually calling and speaking to the heart
Mm.
is the beautiful way to guide ourselves through it, rather than just the intellectual. Oh, I think I'm from this star system, which a lot of people get trapped into. And if they're thinking that and they're trying to force an agenda, then usually the cosmic sense of humor shows up and gives us a nice little backhand and reminds us to get back on your path.
So I love cosmic sense of humor. I showed it every day.
Yes.
Yeah, I was supporting two friends last week simultaneously, like texts are both coming in from both of them. And then I had to pause and I had to take my dog to the dog sitter. And I just heard very clearly, it was like, Julie, you think you're helping them, but really, they are showing up for you in their mastery, wink, wink, meaning this is how the universe works. And
Yep.
they're actually showing you what you need to learn about in this situation and about yourself. So just
Yep.
remember that I mean, yes, it is, of course, in the conversation and you supporting them, of course, there's benefit in all of it. And they behind all of this facade is them standing in their mastery, the master of who they are, and they are actually showing up as a very humble and beautiful teacher for you in this moment. And it was like, and this is how the
Absolutely.
universe works.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. I remind myself daily that the things I catch myself saying the most throughout my day are also the things that I probably needed to hear as well.
Yes.
Because I was present for the conversation, and if I'm saying it repeatedly, then great. I got to work on that part of my own experience, just like the patients that find me do.
Yeah. Can I ask a personal question?
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
because this is what is coming up and I don't have an answer for. But dragon energy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
have you heard of the Sophia code?
Yes.
Okay, what's dragon energy?
Dragons are. Yeah, this is going to go more into the woo than anything else.
Okay.
Dragons are keepers of ancient knowledge, right? ancient wisdom. For a long time, they worked in partnership with humanity as we worked as co-creators on this planet to be able to help the frequency of the planet to be able to rise to higher and higher levels so that the planet that we call Earth was able to ascend and work through its own process of growth and learning and changes and shifts that it has to go through. And at some point in time, humanity took a downturn. And we got really dark and we got really manipulated. And the dragons went, I can't do this anymore. Right? We love you guys. We love humanity. We love the planet that you're on. And they all phased into a different dimension. So they're all around us at all times. But they're just in a frequency that our eyeballs can't pick them up. And so all of the dragon codes typically work with the grids that are the crystalline grids that are around the entire planet. Places of power, a lot of those we know about already, the places where we have ancient pyramids or really powerful sites that exist, and they're just chock full of dragons. I've experienced dragons my entire life. I see them everywhere that I go. I see them in trees. They're always in clouds, and this is all the way back from when I was a kid. And I just thought when I was a kid, dragons are kind of cool. They breathe fire, and they're big, and from a wounded child's perspective, they were as close to invincible as I needed them to be. But they hold a huge amounts of wisdom, and I think our society's storytelling around them, where they're just mindless beasts that come in and just burn fire and eat eat whatever the food is and kill the villagers, is made to strip away the actual power about what dragon energy is. It's a higher level of consciousness that humans have forgotten. And we're working on being able to embrace it stronger. We're working on being able to translate their wisdom into an actual embodied experience, both for the individual and for the collective.
Wow. Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, dragons are in probably 50% of my artwork that I do. And I don't very rarely plan on drawing a dragon. I usually start drawing and a dragon comes out of the pen.
Cool. All right. Where can we, okay, wait. Light language conference. You held that. You participated that, and another one is coming up?
Yep. So we had one that was, all three of these are through the Conscious Awakening Network, consciousawakeningnetwork.org. There was a light language conference that we did at the beginning of the summer where we got 17 light language practitioners from around the world, and each one of us gave both our experience with it, how, depending upon the person, how what it was like for us to be able to transform, or how that changed our lives, and everybody did a transmission as well as far as expressing their individual form of light language. And I think the beauty there is that nobody sounded the same. Right? Some people are like, "Hey, yours sounds similar to mine," but it was like different dialect, even though it's like we're speaking English, but you go anywhere else in the English-speaking world and the accent is slightly different. There's another light language conference that's coming up also through the Conscious Awakening Network that happens to be on the 18th and 19th of October. And then I was just asked earlier today, actually, to be in another one that's in December, that's specifically on dragons and the crystalline grid. So thank you for that segue. And that will also be on the Conscious Awakening Network once that one's up and ready to go.
Awesome. And then where can we find your artwork?
So my artwork is I've got online. We've got Instagram. I'm at Brian C Mears, Brian, C as in Charlie, Mears, Mears. And my website is the same, briancmears.com, where I have most of my artwork scanned. This one actually is not, because I have to make sure that it's settled in the final expression of what it wants to be. But certainly the one that's there behind you is up there, along with, I think I've got over 100 pieces there now.
I'm going to get it closer to the screen so people can see.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. That one itself was, I mean, if we look, there's light codes that are going all the way around it on those outer circles. And then within each one of those little cells of the toroid field, there's some light language pieces, and then it's also on the crystals and the orchids in the center there. Yeah, God, that piece, it's the radiance that comes off that rainbow.
I know. It's like the more you look at it and are with it and view it, you literally
Mhm.
can feel a shift inside happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you take that as a meditation, and either you start at the extremities and you move to the center or go the opposite direction, right? And just allow your eyes to follow wherever, whatever line you're on, whatever light code is there. And if it's interesting, then we pause and we focus on it for a moment. And it just becomes a meditation through the artwork itself. And everybody that I've ever mentioned that to has always said that it's awakened something within
Hmm. Hmm. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for
them.
all of the patient and compassionate space that you have held for me through the messy times in my life. And is there one thing that you would want people to know and or remember?
Um, It's been an honor to work with you, Julie, and thank you for holding the space that's there, and just being willing to work down the path that you're going now. I think the things that are the best for us to remember as humans, that we are all humans and we're all on the same path, as far as trying to figure out the best and most authentic expression of ourselves. Um, so spending the time to be able to connect with who we are, not who we've told we're supposed to be, but who we are, and allowing that to illuminate brilliantly through every single day helps to guide each one of us forward in our own little steps.
Mm.
Throughout the judgment, replace it with curiosity, right? Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I think the way that I think? Is it actually me, or is it something I was told was important? And just looking at life through a lens of curiosity helps us to illuminate our innate gifts of just enjoying this beautiful world that we live upon.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. All right. We'll end there.
All right.
I'm going to stay on. I'm just going to stop recording
Yes, ma'am.
because I don't want to edit.